The richest black pastor in Atlanta, Black Mecca. What if the real money in Atlanta isn't sitting in corporate boardrooms or tech startups, but flowing through church pews every single Sunday? For decades, Atlanta's black churches have quietly built empires worth millions, shaping politics, culture, and entire communities. Some pastors became media moguls, others power brokers, and a few amassed wealth that rivals major businesses. These are not rumors. These are documented realities hidden in plain sight inside the Black Mecca. Stay with us as we break down the truth behind the richest black pastors in Atlanta. Subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, because the stories they avoid are the ones you need to hear. Philip Anthony Mitchell. Philip Anthony Mitchell represents a new chapter in the story of Atlanta's black church, one shaped less by inherited institutions and more by intentional design. Long before 2819, church became a recognizable name. Mitchell's journey reflected something many middle-aged Americans understand deeply rebuilding after financial strain. Early in his adult life, he openly acknowledged being burdened with nearly $100,000 in debt, a reality that grounded his later leadership in discipline rather than spectacle. That experience would quietly influence how he approached ministry money and growth. Founded in 2017, 2819 Church began with 183 attendees meeting without the advantages of historic property or denominational backing. Within a few years, attendance expanded to over 6,000 people weekly, spread across multiple Sunday services at its Atlanta location. Even using conservative giving estimates far below prosperity gospel assumptions, such attendance suggests annual operating revenue in the multi-million-dollar range, consistent with churches of comparable size. What stands out, however, is not just the scale, but the demographic. Mitchell successfully captured black professionals, young families, and millennials who often feel disconnected from traditional church culture, yet still desire theological depth and cultural familiarity. Unlike many Atlanta pastors who built wealth through land accumulation, Mitchell's strategy leaned toward brand scalability. He invested early in digital presence, online sermons, leadership training, and social media engagement areas that grow influence without requiring massive capital expenditures. The launch of the 2819 Institute, a leadership and ministry training arm, signaled that Mitchell was thinking beyond one congregation. Rather than expanding through real estate alone, he focused on replicable systems, mentorship pipelines, and national reach. Is the future of church growth about buildings or about influence? Mitchell's preaching style further explains his rise. His messages balance contemporary language with traditional black church theology, allowing him to bridge generational divides. Older members recognize familiar scriptural grounding, while younger attendees connect with clarity, relevance, and cultural awareness. That balance is rare and financially powerful. Churches that lose younger generations often struggle to sustain long-term revenue, but Mitchell's model actively reverses that trend. Importantly, Mitchell has avoided the public controversies that have followed many high-profile pastors. There are no documented luxury car collections, private jet requests, or lavish real estate headlines tied to his personal name. While his exact net worth is not publicly disclosed, there is no verified evidence suggesting extreme personal enrichment. Instead, available information points to institutional value, the worth of a growing organization, brand equity, and influence, rather than visible personal excess. In Atlanta's crowded religious marketplace, Philip Anthony Mitchell stands out precisely because he does not resemble the prosperity preachers of the past. His power lies in momentum, trust, and adaptability, qualities that matter deeply in a city where churches rise and fall with cultural shifts. Whether his approach ultimately reshapes the black church nationwide remains to be seen. But one fact is already clear. Mitchell has proven that modern influence, when paired with discipline and credibility, can rival land legacy and inherited power in the Black Mecca of Atlanta. Byron E. Thomas. Byron E. Thomas embodies a form of power that rarely makes headlines, but quietly shapes the future of Black churches in Atlanta. Unlike pastors whose influence is measured by stage lights or viral sermons, Thomas built his authority through structured governance and financial discipline, the kind of leadership that appeals to stability-minded Americans who value longevity over spectacle. His path reflects a strategic understanding of how denominational systems work and how real influence is accumulated inside them. A United States Air Force veteran, Thomas brought a mindset of order and accountability into ministry early. His academic credentials earned at historically respected theological institutions positioned him as a serious thinker rather than a celebrity preacher. Over time, he moved deliberately through key pastoral assignments within the United Methodist Church, serving congregations such as Central United Methodist and Fort Street, before assuming leadership at Ben Hill United Methodist Church in Atlanta in 2013. Each transition was not accidental. It placed him closer to broader denominational authority. At Ben Hill, Thomas demonstrated what many churches struggle to achieve: financial independence. Under his leadership, the church retired its mortgage 5 years ahead of schedule. Within approximately 6.5 years, Ben Hill reported zero debt and $4.5 million in financial reserves, figures publicly acknowledged within denominational records. In an era when many large churches operate under heavy loan burdens, this accomplishment signaled exceptional fiscal stewardship rather than aggressive expansion. In 2021, Thomas's influence expanded beyond a single congregation when he was appointed district superintendent of the Central South District. This role elevated him from local leadership into regional oversight, granting authority across multiple churches' budgets and ministerial appointments. In practical terms, this means Thomas helps shape how millions of dollars in church resources are allocated across Georgia. While this power does not appear on personal net worth lists, it represents a level of institutional control that outlasts individual popularity. What makes Thomas particularly notable is what he does not display. There are no verified reports of luxury vehicles, extravagant personal residences, or prosperity-style fundraising appeals tied to his name. His private life remains intentionally low profile, reinforcing his reputation as a leader focused on systems rather than self-promotion. For many older Americans, this restraint resonates deeply. It reflects a traditional ethic of service and responsibility. Thomas's approach also challenges a common misconception that influence requires visibility. By operating within denominational governance, he shapes policy leadership pipelines and financial practices that affect entire networks of congregations. This kind of authority is slower to build but far more durable than viral fame. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, Byron E. Thomas represents the quiet architect, a leader who proves that wealth in the church does not always mean personal riches. Sometimes it means ensuring that institutions remain solvent, trusted, and capable of serving future generations. In a city known for bold personalities, Thomas's legacy may ultimately be measured not by headlines, but by how long the structures he strengthened continue to stand. William Murphy III. William Murphy III represents a distinctly modern form of leadership in Atlanta's Black church landscape, one where ministry, music, and media intersect seamlessly. Unlike traditional pastors whose influence depends almost entirely on weekly attendance, Murphy understood early that the future of church economics would be shaped by intellectual property, digital distribution, and cultural reach. His rise reflects a sharp awareness of how faith-based influence now travels far beyond the sanctuary walls. As presiding bishop of worship for the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship, Murphy holds denominational authority that spans multiple states. This role alone places him in a position of structural influence, but his impact does not stop there. Alongside his wife Danielle Murphy, he leads Dream Center Church of Atlanta, a ministry designed with production performance and broadcast in mind. From its physical layout to its technical infrastructure, the church functions not only as a worship space, but also as a fully capable recording and media environment. Murphy's financial strength is closely tied to his career as an accomplished gospel artist. His albums and singles have consistently charted on Billboard's gospel rankings, translating spiritual messages into measurable commercial success. In recent years, his music releases have generated revenue through streaming platforms, digital downloads, radio airplay, and licensing opportunities. These income streams operate independently of church tithes, providing long-term returns that continue long after a sermon ends or a tour concludes. Should churches still rely mainly on Sunday offerings in a digital-first world? One of Murphy's most strategic decisions was ensuring that investments served multiple purposes. Recording worship albums live at Dream Center allowed the same resources, sound systems, musicians, staff to support both ministry and commercial production. This efficiency reduced overhead while expanding reach. When a worship experience becomes an album, and an album becomes a broadcast product, the line between church and media company quietly disappears. Murphy's partnership with his wife further distinguishes his model. Rather than separating spiritual leadership from administration, their shared management approach treats the ministry as a unified operation. This structure mirrors successful family-run enterprises more than traditional church hierarchies, allowing for quicker decision-making and tighter brand consistency. For many observers, this signals a shift in how Black churches are governed in the 21st century. Importantly, Murphy's public image avoids the excess often associated with prosperity preaching. There are no verified reports of private jet campaigns or extravagant personal spending tied directly to his name. His wealth, while real, appears anchored in creative output and organizational control, not spectacle. This distinction matters greatly to older audiences who value dignity, restraint, and accountability in spiritual leadership. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, William Murphy III stands as proof that influence no longer depends solely on physical expansion. His power lies in content that travels, songs that generate royalties for years, and a ministry structured to thrive even as church attendance patterns change. Whether one agrees with his methods or not, Murphy demonstrates a central truth of modern faith economics when worship becomes a digital asset. The pulpit gains a global reach and financial resilience that previous generations could hardly imagine. O.C. Allen III. O.C. Allen III stands as one of the most unconventional and strategically positioned pastors in Atlanta's Black church ecosystem. His rise did not follow inherited pulpits' denominational grooming or prosperity gospel theatrics. Instead, Allen built influence by stepping directly into cultural tension and refusing to retreat. In a city where Black church tradition has historically leaned conservative on issues of sexuality, Allen did something few believed was sustainable. He openly built a thriving ministry while being openly gay. In 2005, Allen founded the Vision Church of Atlanta, starting modestly, but with a clearly defined mission centered on inclusion, dignity, and spiritual empowerment. Rather than chasing mass appeal, he focused on a community that had long felt excluded from traditional religious spaces, Black LGBTQ individuals and allies, seeking both faith and affirmation. Over time, this clarity became his competitive advantage. The Vision Church grew into a multi-campus operation with thousands of members, supported by conferences, leadership programs, and outreach initiatives that extended well beyond Sunday services. Allen's approach to wealth differs sharply from prosperity-focused models. There is no emphasis on luxury symbolism or extravagant personal branding. Instead, his ministry's financial strength comes from diversified revenue streams. These include national conferences such as the I Elevate Conference, which draws attendees from across the country and attracts corporate sponsorships aligned with diversity, health, and social advocacy. Public-facing records and property filings indicate ministry-owned real estate valued in the high six-figure to low seven-figure range, consistent with stable institutional growth rather than speculative expansion. Beyond church operations, Allen expanded his platform through media visibility and consulting. He has been recognized by outlets such as The Advocate and LGBTQ-focused leadership organizations as one of America's most influential faith voices within the Black LGBTQ community. These recognitions are not merely symbolic. They translate into speaking engagements, advisory roles, and partnerships that provide income independent of congregational giving. This insulation from weekly attendance volatility gives his model a resilience many traditional churches lack. Equally significant is Allen's cultural timing. Younger Black Americans, particularly educated professionals, are increasingly disengaging from churches perceived as hostile or dismissive toward LGBTQ members. Allen positioned the Vision Church precisely at this intersection of faith and evolving social values. By doing so, he attracted a demographic with higher-than-average educational attainment and disposable income, a factor that quietly strengthens long-term financial sustainability without aggressive fundraising tactics. Critics have often underestimated Allen's strategy by framing it purely as activism. In reality, his work reflects disciplined organizational leadership. Programs addressing HIV awareness, mental health, leadership development, and community advocacy operate as structured initiatives rather than symbolic gestures. These programs also open doors to grants, partnerships, and institutional funding unavailable to churches that avoid social engagement. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, O.C. Allen III represents a future-facing model of church leadership, one built on relevance, credibility, and trust rather than conformity. His wealth may not rival that of the city's most famous megachurch pastors, but his influence within a rapidly growing cultural segment is undeniable. By aligning faith with inclusion and strategic clarity, Allen has secured something many wealthier ministries struggle to maintain: loyalty, legitimacy, and a place in the next chapter of the Black church's evolution. Raphael Warnock. Raphael Warnock occupies a rare and powerful position in Atlanta's Black church tradition, one where spiritual leadership and national politics converge. As senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the historic pulpit once led by Martin Luther King Jr., Warnock inherited not only a congregation but a legacy deeply woven into America's civil rights story. That history alone places Ebenezer among the most influential Black churches in the nation, drawing thousands of members and visitors each year, along with constant public attention. Warnock's rise reflects disciplined preparation rather than celebrity ambition. Long before entering public office, he built a reputation as a thoughtful preacher and moral voice shaped by theology, scholarship, and social justice. His sermons emphasize collective responsibility, economic fairness, and civic engagement messages that resonate strongly with older Americans who remember the Black church as both a spiritual refuge and a political anchor. This foundation made his transition into public service feel natural to many supporters rather than opportunistic. In 2021, Warnock became a United States Senator representing Georgia, creating an unprecedented dual role: a sitting U.S. Senator who continues to pastor one of the most historically significant Black churches in America. From a financial standpoint, this combination carries measurable weight. A U.S. Senator's annual salary exceeds $170,000, separate from church compensation. In addition, publicly reported disclosures confirm that Warnock received a church-provided housing allowance consistent with long-standing clergy tax provisions and maintains personal real estate in the Atlanta area valued at over $1 million based on property records. Should spiritual authority and political power ever sit in the same hands? Beyond salary, Warnock's influence extends into publishing and public speaking. His memoir received a reported six-figure book advance, aligning with industry norms for nationally prominent political figures. These earnings are not speculative. They follow standard disclosure practices required of federal office holders. Unlike prosperity-focused pastors, Warnock has not been associated with private jets, luxury car campaigns, or lavish lifestyle appeals from the pulpit. His public image emphasizes service restraint and institutional responsibility rather than personal accumulation. Ebenezer Baptist Church itself remains a central factor in his influence. The church draws large weekly attendance and serves as a symbolic destination for political leaders seeking legitimacy with Black voters. During election cycles, it becomes a focal point of national attention. That visibility translates into soft power access relationships and influence rather than direct personal wealth. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, such symbolic capital often matters as much as financial assets. Critics sometimes question whether Warnock's political role distracts from pastoral duties. Supporters argue the opposite, that his presence in the Senate amplifies the church's historic mission of social advocacy. Importantly, there is no verified evidence of financial misconduct tied to his dual roles. All known income streams align with publicly disclosed salaries, book contracts, and housing provisions permitted under U.S. law. Raphael Warnock represents a different definition of rich in Atlanta's Black church economy. His wealth is not rooted in sprawling campuses or media empires, but in moral authority, national visibility, and institutional trust. In a city where pastors have built fortunes through many paths, Warnock's story stands apart, illustrating how legacy credibility and public service can generate influence that outlasts money itself. E. Dewey Smith. E. Dewey Smith represents a pivotal transition point in Atlanta's Black church economy, where the traditional megachurch model evolves into something closer to a media-driven institution. While many pastors built influence through inheritance or denominational elevation, Smith's rise came from recognizing a hard truth. Early, the future of faith would depend on platform control, not just pulpits. His leadership reflects a mindset shaped by strategy scale and adaptability rather than nostalgia. As senior pastor of House of Hope Atlanta, Smith oversaw the transformation of the ministry into one of the city's most visible and structurally complex churches. The organization operates on approximately 60 acres, housing multiple buildings and a sanctuary capable of seating around 7,000 people. Churches of this size typically manage annual operating budgets in the multi-million-dollar range, even under conservative financial assumptions. While Smith keeps his personal finances largely private, the physical infrastructure alone signals sustained access to capital, long-term planning, and institutional stability. What truly distinguishes Smith, however, is his pivot beyond physical space. Around 2020, he launched Hope TV Network, a full-scale media operation producing original faith-based programming. This was not limited to live streaming sermons. The network functions like a broadcast studio, developing content designed for digital distribution, television reach, and on-demand consumption. According to publicly reported metrics and industry acknowledgments, House of Hope produced content has generated hundreds of millions of views across platforms and earned multiple Telly Awards, placing Smith's ministry firmly within the professional media ecosystem. Smith also expanded into gospel music, releasing projects under his own label that charted on recognized gospel rankings. These releases created royalty-based income streams, including streaming revenue and radio airplay, operating independently of weekly offerings. Unlike churches that rely solely on attendance, Smith's ministry benefits from content that continues to generate value long after production. This approach mirrors successful entertainment businesses more than traditional congregations. Notably, Smith's public profile avoids many of the excesses associated with prosperity preaching. There are no verified reports of private jet fundraising appeals or highly publicized luxury acquisitions tied to his name. When estimates place his net worth around $1 million, observers often miss the larger picture. The real value lies not in personal assets but in institutional ownership, the land, the network, the intellectual property, and the audience itself. These elements form a portfolio that extends beyond any single individual. Smith's preaching style complements this structure. His delivery blends traditional Black church cadence with contemporary language, making his messages accessible to both longtime churchgoers and digitally native audiences. This balance has helped House of Hope maintain relevance, while many large churches struggle with declining engagement. For viewers aged 45 to 65, this approach feels familiar yet forward-looking, preserving reverence without resisting change. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, E. Dewey Smith stands as a case study in adaptation. He demonstrates that church wealth in the modern era is not defined solely by donations or buildings, but by reach, repeatability, and relevance. By repositioning ministry as a content-driven enterprise anchored in faith, Smith secured a form of power that does not depend on Sunday attendance alone. In a rapidly shifting cultural landscape, that insight may prove more valuable than any sanctuary ever built. Jamal Bryant. Jamal Bryant's chapter in Atlanta's Black church history is defined less by accumulation and more by confrontation, legacy, expectation, and structural reality. When Bryant assumed leadership of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, he stepped into one of the most recognizable pulpits in America, yet also one of the most fragile. New Birth had been shaped by years of rapid expansion, national attention, and a financial model dependent on constant growth. Bryant did not inherit momentum. He inherited pressure, public scrutiny, and an institution struggling to adapt to a changing religious economy. At its peak, New Birth reportedly drew tens of thousands of worshipers and controlled roughly 250 acres of land in DeKalb County, making it one of the largest landholding black churches in the country. Land of that scale carries prestige, but also relentless expense. Utilities, staffing, security, maintenance, and debt service require steady revenue regardless of attendance trends. By the time Bryant arrived, widely reported figures pointed to tens of millions of dollars in long-term obligations tied to past construction decisions. His challenge was not expansion, but stabilization. Bryant's leadership style immediately set him apart. He embraced sharp rhetoric, cultural commentary, and political awareness, keeping his sermons highly visible beyond church walls. Supporters viewed this approach as necessary modernization, while critics argued it distracted from internal rebuilding. Either way, attention followed him and visibility became one of his primary tools. Unlike prosperity-focused pastors, whose wealth is displayed through luxury assets, Bryant's personal finances remain comparatively restrained. Online estimates of his net worth vary widely, yet no verified disclosures place him among Atlanta's wealthiest pastors. His influence is tied to managing inherited assets rather than accumulating new ones. The land New Birth owns may be valuable on paper, but land alone does not resolve debt or fund daily operations without careful development. Bryant attempted to reposition New Birth through community initiatives, public advocacy, and redevelopment concepts aimed at transforming property into sustainable revenue. These efforts reflect awareness that modern churches must function as institutions serving broader social needs. However, transformation at this scale is slow, costly, and vulnerable to skepticism, especially from longtime members who remember earlier dominance. What makes Bryant's story especially instructive is the burden of legacy. He did not design the system he oversees, yet he is judged by its outcomes. Every decision is compared to a past that may no longer be financially viable. Leadership in this case is not about vision alone, but endurance. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, Jamal Bryant does not represent effortless wealth. He represents the risk of overexpansion and the difficulty of reforming massive institutions under public pressure. His tenure forces an uncomfortable truth: building an empire is only half the challenge. Holding it together when conditions change may be the greater test. For viewers of Legends of Black Excellence, this story invites reflection, patience, honesty, and a deeper examination of power, responsibility, faith, and consequence. Eddie L. Long. Eddie L. Long was once the most commanding and influential pastor in Atlanta's Black church world, a figure whose rise reshaped how power, wealth, and visibility could operate from the pulpit. When Long became senior pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in 1987, the congregation reportedly numbered only a few hundred members. Over the next 2 decades, New Birth transformed into one of the largest black churches in America, symbolizing the height of megachurch ambition during a period when expansion itself was treated as evidence of divine favor. Long's leadership style was bold, authoritative, and unapologetically aspirational. He preached disciplined masculinity and spiritual dominance messages that resonated with thousands of worshipers seeking strength and structure in uncertain times. Attendance surged. New Birth eventually claimed tens of thousands of members, and its physical footprint expanded dramatically. The church constructed a 10,000-seat sanctuary and accumulated hundreds of acres of land in DeKalb County and surrounding areas, creating an institution that functioned more like a small municipality than a traditional church. This growth, however, was fueled by aggressive financial strategies. Public reporting during the 2000s revealed that New Birth carried massive construction loans with total debt estimates exceeding $40 million. At the same time, Long himself became one of the highest compensated pastors in the country. Investigative reporting confirmed that between 1997 and 2000, he personally received more than $3 million in compensation. His lifestyle became inseparable from his public image, including luxury vehicles and residence in a high-value estate, standing in stark contrast to the working-class communities surrounding the church. Here is the question that still haunts his legacy. Does rapid growth strengthen a ministry or quietly weaken it from within? Long's influence extended beyond church walls. He positioned himself alongside political figures, civil rights families, and national platforms, reinforcing New Birth's status as a center of black power in Atlanta. For a time, his authority appeared untouchable. Yet visibility also invites scrutiny. Beginning in the late 2000s, allegations of personal misconduct surfaced, triggering widespread media attention and legal settlements. Although no criminal convictions resulted, the damage to trust was immediate and severe. As controversy intensified, donations declined. Large institutions built on continuous giving are especially vulnerable to reputational shock. Debt obligations remained constant even as attendance dropped. By the time Long passed away in 2017, New Birth was left with immense infrastructure, heavy financial obligations, and a future clouded by uncertainty. The empire he built proved difficult to sustain without the momentum that once powered it. Importantly, Eddie Long's story is not one of proven financial fraud. The deeper issue was structural overreach. Expansion outpaced safeguards. Growth outpaced resilience. When pressure arrived, the system had little flexibility. His legacy now functions as both inspiration and warning. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, Eddie L. Long represents the peak of megachurch dominance and the cost of building faster than institutions can endure. His rise proved how powerful the black church could become. His fall reminded the world that size, visibility, and wealth do not guarantee stability. For legends of black excellence, his story stands as a sobering lesson in ambition, accountability, and the true price of empire. Creflo Dollar. Creflo Dollar is the most financially dominant and widely recognized figure in Atlanta's black church economy, and his name has become inseparable from the phrase, "the richest black pastor in Atlanta." His rise was not subtle, inherited, or accidental. It was the result of a clearly defined prosperity gospel vision combined with media mastery, relentless expansion, and an unapologetic embrace of wealth as spiritual proof. Few pastors in American history have built a ministry as large, as visible, or as controversial. Dollar founded World Changers Church International in 1986, with a small group of believers meeting in modest settings. Growth came quickly. By the mid-1990s, the ministry had outgrown traditional church spaces and in 1995 moved into the World Dome, an 500-seat facility in College Park, Georgia. According to Dollar's own public statements, the project was completed without conventional bank loans, relying heavily on congregational giving. By the early 2000s, independent media investigations estimated annual church revenue at its peak reached approximately $60 to $70 million in a single year, placing World Changers among the highest-earning churches in the nation. Dollar's personal wealth became a defining part of his public identity. Multiple financial and religious publications have estimated his net worth at roughly $25 to $30 million, derived from book sales, broadcast ministries, speaking engagements, and global media distribution. His sermons aired daily across television networks and international platforms, allowing him to monetize teaching at a scale far beyond local attendance. Dollar never concealed his lifestyle. Luxury homes, high-end vehicles, and private aviation became symbols of his theology rather than contradictions to it. The most infamous moment came when he publicly asked supporters to help fund a Gulfstream G650, a private jet costing over $60 million. The backlash was immediate and global. Critics accused him of excess, while supporters defended the request as necessary for international ministry travel. Although the campaign was later withdrawn, the episode permanently shaped how the public viewed Dollar's message. Financial watchdog groups criticized World Changers for limited transparency, noting the absence of publicly released audited statements. However, no criminal charges were ever filed against Dollar, and no court ruling established financial fraud. What makes his story especially significant is scale. World Changers operated on more than 80 acres, maintained international satellite locations, and influenced prosperity teaching worldwide. His books sold globally, his broadcasts reached millions, and his theology reshaped how many churches spoke about money. Yet contrast remained unavoidable. Public data showed that many congregants lived in communities with average household incomes under $30,000, creating a sharp divide between pulpit wealth and pew reality. In Atlanta's Black Mecca, Creflo Dollar represents the extreme edge of church-based wealth. He proved that faith, media, and money could merge into a global empire while forcing audiences to confront lasting questions about power, ethics, responsibility, and consequence within modern religious leadership narratives today, worldwide without simple. Atlanta's Black Mecca reveals a truth many people still struggle to confront: power inside the Black church no longer comes from one source. Some pastors built wealth through media empires, others through land politics or deep community trust. Each path raises uncomfortable questions about faith, money, and responsibility. Is the richest pastor the one with the highest net worth, or the one with influence that outlives buildings and headlines? As generations change and churches evolve, the definition of success is being rewritten in real time. Legends of Black excellence brings these stories forward not to judge, but to challenge how we measure leadership, legacy, and true impact.